Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 74 of Third and Wrong. I'm your co-host, Stephen Bolin, and with me, as always, is Austin Dowalonga. Zach is off doing adult things. He's looking at houses, so we will just cut that off right away. Speaking of houses, Auzzie is recording his first episode from his new house. Not sure if that's information you wanted to share with the world, Auzzie, but
I guess we are.
sharing it anyways, man. And we'll give the address will be in the show notes, actually, if you want to go congratulate him in person. So yeah, Auzzie, he's recording from his kitchen right now, so the office isn't set up, but we're gonna get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. Soon enough, I hope to have a Tom Brady mural just behind me in the office and
Painted on the wall.
Painted. Yeah, exactly. As if I haven't done enough painting in the last 5 days, but yeah, so that'll be next year's project probably.
There you go. Fumes got you nice and loose. Gonna have some good takes for the pod today. I love it. Auzzie, let's start with this. We were pretty big advocates for the XFL when it was on. I mean, we talked about how great of an avenue it was for players who otherwise, exhausted all their options in the NFL or CFL or Arena Football League, and give them a chance to pursue their professional career. And it looks like The Rock will give him that shot, as him and his business partner Danny Garcia, along with the Redbird Capital Partners, have bought the XFL for $15 million.
Change.
You love to see it. You love to hear it. The pandemic really smacked them in the mouth, and caused them to shut down all operations. Like, it was really eerie. Even like their Instagram page, it didn't even have like a goodbye post. It's like everyone was fired and they just had some random post as their last post. And it was like just a ghost town after that. So they're back at business. Obviously, with the way the pandemic is right now, we don't know when the reopening is going to happen for them. They're a spring league, so potentially things will be better by March 2021. We don't know, but I'm really fired up for this. Auzzie, what was your first reaction when you heard that The Rock has bought the XFL?
Okay, so first off, I'm sorry if anything happens in the hallway. I'm actually in my living room right now watching the Leafs game as well. They just got scored on, so I'm pretty sad about
I'm
that.
repping the Lakers right now, so we're repping the sports that are on right now. So
and there's Shay with some laundry. So that's I'm glad I said that right before she did that. She's apologizing. No, it's all good, babe. We're good. We're just live. Just kidding. So my thoughts on that was actually, hell yes. I really love the XFL, and it was just so nice because when you're kind of obsessed with football, I think I speak for all of us on the podcast here, that we kind of are a little obsessed. It was just nice after the Super Bowl being able to still tune into some football on the weekends, and XFL was amazing. I really liked everything about it. It was different. It was the same in some ways, but different in a lot of ways, and they experimented, and they weren't afraid to experiment, which I think the NFL kind of acts like they have a lot of red tape in that sense, is that they just don't want to enact change. Whereas the XFL was like, let's go, let's try the Sky Cam or the Sky Judge or whatever the heck they called it. Let's show people the review process and everything that goes into that. So the XFL was just really enjoyable, and the product on the field was amazing to watch as well. So when I heard that The Rock, of all people, freaking bought it, I was like, hey, I like The Rock. Who doesn't like The Rock? So I was like, heck yeah. And then the XFL is coming back, baby. Let's go. So it was just a win-win.
Yeah, for those that don't know, The Rock actually tried out for the Calgary Stampeders back in like 1994, before he was even like considered professional wrestling or anything like that. And legendary coach Wally Buono cut him. And so The Rock's actually had quite a few videos or posts about his experience, and he thanked Wally Buono because he learned a lot from that experience. I think he left the CFL with like $7 in his pocket. So, now he's providing an opportunity for other professional football players who want to keep pursuing their dream. And hopefully there's less, I don't want to say less situations like The Rock, because obviously The Rock turned into The Rock, but not every football player that gets cut's going to turn into The Rock. So, I mean, he's going to provide a lot of opportunities and jobs for athletes that otherwise probably would be on their last leg and have to look at other opportunities. And that wouldn't be football or professional wrestling for that matter. So good for The Rock. Happy to hear it. Love to see it.
Let's go. He hasn't forgotten his roots too. like I totally forgot about that story that he had like $7 in his pocket when he met with Vince McMahon for the WWF, and look where he is now. He's freaking given a bunch of what was it, like 500 players that lost their jobs. So it's given 500 players their jobs back eventually. Obviously not right now, but if the deal goes through, that's August 21st. They said that it could be done by, it's just got to get approved or whatever. And if that's the case, then the man who lost out on a career in professional football is given that gift back. Let's go. There's 3 guys on a podcast that might want to try out for a team. So let's come on, Dwayne Johnson. Let's go.
Us trying out for any professional leagues an insult to the players who are already there. Not speaking for you, Auzzie. You run 10Ks. I don't. I don't run.
Fair play.
But you know what? Let's look. Here's a cool segue. If the CFL ceases to have a season, maybe the XFL can expand into Canada, because right now, whereas there was a deadline of June 30 or July 30th to decide if there's going to be a season or not, as of today, Dave Naylor tweets the CFL Board of Governors are still deciding if there's going to be a season or not, because the federal government isn't sure if they want to give the CFL money or not, because the CFL had asked for $30 million, and the federal government replied with, oh, how about a high interest loan? And then the league was like, well, that's going to cripple us with all the fees and the interest rates and everything. And so now they're still bargaining, still negotiating, trying to get some money to save the season. And I don't know what to think right now. We've been really hard on Randy Ambrosie, the commissioner of the CFL, but I think this is also on the CFLPA as well. Like, they need to, I think there's too much kind of bickering and back and forth going on social media. And what needs to be happening right now is they need to just lock themselves in a room and fight it out, not physically, but with their words, and negotiate this thing to where it's a fair deal. But there's too much airing of dirty laundry, in my opinion, on social media. And, you know, it sure gives the fans an inside peek, but that's not really the kind of stuff we're into. We're more into the X's and O's and the players and the personalities behind the masks. But now here we are, you know, a week past the deadline that was given, and we're just sitting here still without any answers. And that's just frustrating as a fan. I couldn't imagine what it's like for players, coaches, staff, everyone. And, you know, the Winnipeg, who has to set up this bubble, and they don't know if they're going to be able to do that or not. So, Auzzie, any frustration on your end that you haven't already expressed over the numerous episodes we've discussed this legal matter, which I'm kind of honestly sick and tired of, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing from just an operations standpoint that this is kind of, like you said, the airing of the dirty laundry that's taking place. And I don't know, I haven't been too active on social media over the past week with moving in and everything, but did the CFL or anybody of importance actually mention anything about missing their self-imposed deadline, or is that just Dave Naylor coming out and saying
no, like, but they that deadline did exist, but they can't really say anything definitively until they know whether or not the federal government's going to give them money. So they're kind of at the mercy of the government.
Oh, okay, so they couldn't really say like things are still ongoing or whatever. Because I from my perspective, I was like, that's not ideal that they're giving us a deadline. I mean like us and all the stakeholders, the players and coaches, et cetera. They're giving you a deadline, like, okay, we're going to have an answer for you, and then just radio silence on the other end. So I was like, that doesn't look very good.
No.
But no, I think that it's just, I was asked on, what day was that? Tuesday, if there was going to be a season. And it's tough to speculate right now. Like, maybe they have a will that they want to, that they're going to just make it work. And maybe there are enough people that are willing to put in that effort, but we discussed it probably 2 times in separate podcasts, the wage that players would be getting, and it'd be like $8,000. It might not even have been that when we did our calculation. And it's just like, really, you're going to move up?
Yeah.
Oh man. And you move the whole family up, or move yourself up for like a couple months, get a paycheck, and then head back down. You'd be better off to just keep your job at McDonald's or whatever the case.
Okay, well, they're not working at McDonald's, man. I don't think we don't have to go that far, but
well, I mean, you keep your second job if you got one, and just keep making that money, because the CFL as of 2020, it's just not going to be a very promising financial decision on your part. So
No. And I wouldn't like imagine if you suffered a career-ending injury and had $9,000 to show for it. Like it's just
not ideal.
no. And then I hear a lot of people too saying, well, why doesn't the NFL bail them out? I'm like, well, the NFL is also going to be losing a lot of money this year too. They had to negotiate with the NFLPA. And I think the NFL gave a loan or just gave the CFL money back in the 90s to keep it afloat. I'm not sure if there were strings attached for that then, but I feel like if they did that now, there'd be very much strings attached to it now. And I don't think that's something that would be healthy for the CFL long term.
You can't keep relying on other people. Like you can't rely on government bailouts. You can't rely on NFL bailouts. You got to be a profitable league. And while we agree that the product on the field with the CFL is a great product, at the same time, it's still a business that needs to be making money. And the fact that it's come out that like, six teams are losing money every year. Like that's kind of, it just doesn't make sense to me that they're still going. I'm glad that they're still going, obviously, but it's totally baffling to me that it's truly kind of failing in a sense. And yet here we are where we're just trying to determine if there's going to be like a 6-week season or something like that, where teams are already losing money every year. Like what we're talking about the XFL that went out of business and the CFL. It just seems like it's, if they don't do something quick, they're not going to be here with us much longer, which is sad to say.
And all those new stadiums that have been built. I mean, there's markets there's markets for football here. Hey, don't get me wrong. If the CFL went under, there'd be another league in this country within, I'd say 5. I want to say even within 3 years, either the XFL or some kind of spring league would be in Canada, or maybe a new version of the CFL started by someone, because there's some really strong markets, and maybe not right away in the East where they were really struggling with making money, but you can bet your boots Saskatchewan would have a professional football team in some capacity by 2025. Like no doubt about it in my mind. So they got to do something with those stadiums. The city spent a lot of money on building them. So.
Oh man, could you imagine? That's why Calgary hasn't invested in McMahon Stadium. But anyways, I didn't mean to sound too pessimistic on my take there. That was just it. Just from a business standpoint, it just doesn't. I don't see how it can keep going out like that. But I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic guy. But as far as the CFL goes, I mean. Glass is like a quarter empty.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So with the NFL, there's been a lot of talk that, should they have went bubble, kind of like every other league has went, because we're seeing in the MLB COVID outbreaks with teams like the Miami Marlins. I think the Angels had an outbreak. I can't be certain on that.
I think
some guy's weed whacking here. One sec.
We now interrupt this broadcast with weed whipping with Steve Bolin.
Podcasting without a studio problems 101 there. That's you got to shut your windows even when it's plus 30 outside. So great. If I start sweating on camera, just go to another tab or something. Anyways, we saw COVID outbreaks with these MLB teams who have not explored the bubble. They're just traveling as is, and they're expected to kind of use the honor system to stay in their hotels and not get up to any trouble. I say trouble as in everyone thinks, they're going to go out partying and stuff, but even just going out to see a friend could be a problem. And so now the NFL, we're looking at potentially a similar dangerous situation where there's no bubble, and you're just really trusting that these players and coaches to an extent and staff are all going to essentially bubble within their own communities between their homes and the stadiums and their practice facilities for 6 months. And that's a tall task, because not that I don't trust NFL players. I mean, I don't know if I'd trust myself. It's just like, you're in an away, you're at an away game in Atlanta, and you have a friend from college or something when you want to go meet up with them. He's like, oh, come on, man. Just like, let's go grab dinner or something. And all of a sudden does the US have Earls? You're at an Earls, and all of a sudden you contract COVID and infect your whole position group. Like that's a realistic thing that could happen. Not that these guys are going to be at like nightclubs or, whatever. It could be something as simple as that. So it's a tough situation. And I proposed the question on Twitter, should the NFL, or I said the NFL should have looked more into a bubble, but I got a lot of replies back saying that wasn't really feasible with the amount of staff, equipment, trainers, everyone that's involved. Auzzie, did you see some kind of way that this could have been possible if you broke it up into bubbles into divisions, or, teams of 8 in one city. It's really hard. I feel like the feasibility of this, now that I look at it, probably wouldn't be a great option.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted a season where it's 16 games of just division foe against division foe for 16 weeks, like, it wouldn't have been fun in that sense, because I think a big thing that we've discussed last off season was the parity in the NFL, and you take away a lot of that by just having division. And obviously this is unprecedented, being in a pandemic where you have to factor in these things. But I just think that would have been, in my mind, the only thing that really would have made sense if you're going to, because like you said, there's so many, from a feasibility standpoint, like I look at what the NHL has done, go Leafs. And they've, and what they've done, they've blocked off blocks and blocks of the downtown section. And like, you talk about doing that with multiple cities in these big markets. And I just like, what do these business owners do for 6 months? Like the NHL playoffs, I think, are going to last 2 months or something like that, or 3 months. So
I think till October. So yeah, three full months.
Yeah. So that's quite a tall task. And that's a lot of money that the NHL probably has to be paying to the city of Toronto or and Edmonton, or however they're doing that. That there's a lot of other stakeholders that are impacted by bubbling off a portion of the city, which is sad. So I love the bubble concept, and I see what the NHL has done, and I really like it. I see what the NBA has done, and I really like it. But just from an NFL standpoint, where they're going to expand the rosters to include 80 for the whole year. Like, so now you got 80 people. The NHL has 23 or something like that per team. Oof. I think they upped it a little bit, so maybe 30 people. And then you got your training staff, et cetera, et cetera. But then you want 80 people and a whole training staff to boot, and a front office.
Coaching staff.
Oh, yeah, it's just so totally understandable from a feasibility standpoint. So that just begs the question, Steve, should there even be an NFL season? I know we didn't have this on the agenda, but that just kind of leads one into the other, because we're looking at the MLB, who had to postpone games because of COVID, because of the pandemic breaking out in locker rooms and stuff like that. Now, what happens with the NFL if anything like that happens? Like, should we even be talking about a league this year?
It's really tough, man. And I'm not a public health expert. We've said that numerous times on this podcast. Not that anyone ever mistake us for their public health experts. I mean,
with our jerseys on, we're like, yeah, we're
not biased at all.
Exactly.
Honestly, Austin, I think I know there's a lot of money at stake, but if I were them, I probably wouldn't have a season, honestly. And that's just my gut instinct. OBJ said the same thing. So, I mean, I don't think I'm alone in this. I know these guys want to play. It's their livelihood. And I'm not sure if they, the owners might have been like, fuck it. If you're not playing, we're not paying you. And that would have been a huge thing. I'm really glad they came to an agreement with any guy who opts out. They still get paid, which we're going to get to that later. It's really tough. I mean, I really like what Pete Carroll said in terms of the bubble for them is all mental. And what he meant by that was by trusting your players to do the right thing. Pete Carroll's number one rule is protect the team. And so when you have leaders like Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and even guys like DK Metcalf, he had his press conference today, that they're all buying into that. And I think with a really strong locker room culture that Pete Carroll has built over 10 years. And, I give Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer a lot of crap on this podcast for the way they like to run their offense, but I will never take anything away from him, Pete Carroll, and John Schneider, the GM, of how they built this culture and how they get everyone to trust each other and everyone to buy in. I think if you had more teams like that, you'd really be in a good position to have a season and everyone would do the right thing and do right by their team. Now, you have a lot of teams that have first-year coaching staffs. You have a lot of teams that have potentially toxic locker room cultures. Are they going to buy into what their coach is saying? Are they going to buy into that message to, hey, for the next 6 months, it's family and football and nothing else? I'm not so sure, because I don't think every team has leaders like Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and Pete Carroll. That's just my take on it. But I really like what Pete Carroll said. And I think if every team could buy into something like that, we could have a successful season. But I know all it takes is one person to fuck it up. I'm just going to say it. And we swear on this podcast all the time. I don't know why I'm biting my tongue now, but it literally, and that's for any one of us, right? All it takes is for one of us to go get wild at a pub one night and take a bunch of pictures with our friends and kissing them on the cheek or whatever you like to do at pubs after the Leafs win. Auzzie is, smooching everyone on the cheek.
All bets are off when the Leafs
all bets
win,
are off when the Leafs win, man. And after a big win, you got to trust that these guys are going to go back to the hotel, get on the plane and head home. But it's really going to take everyone to buy in, and human nature tells me that probably won't be the case. I think the season starts off on time, no problem. But if I had to throw a random prediction out there, I say by like week 3 or 4, we're probably postponing games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear Jasper in the background. Hopefully not. I think that's a fair take in that sense. I know it's tough to speculate something as impactful as that, and just like, when does the pandemic have an impact on the NFL season? I know it's kind of awkward, but no, I think that's totally fair. Like, I just did some quick maths, and 2,500 players you're talking about over the league with 80 people on a roster. You're trying to contain or corral 2,500 people that I say corral because a lot of these guys are young. Now they're rich. They've got lots of money. They want to party. And so now you have to corral these guys into saying, okay, you go to work, you go home, that's it. And like you said, it takes one person. So 2,500 guys. And there was a report for the MLB, one of the players with the Marlins, he had gone to a strip club or something like that, and he ruined it for the Marlins team. All of a sudden 11 guys have COVID. So if that's where he contracted COVID, was at a strip club, who says that one of these guys isn't going to a club of some sort and going, or even so much as going to the grocery store, right? Like, you can get it anywhere. So that's the toughest part about it, is that you can get it anywhere. It's easily transferable, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Contagious, I guess.
Contagious. Yeah. So I'm no health expert, but
you could probably contract it at a strip club. That goes without being said.
Yeah. So I hope, like I said, I'm an optimistic guy. I hope that there's a season. It'd be nice to, with all this that's been going on, it's been a sight for sore eyes seeing hockey and basketball back on TV. Right. So it'd be really nice to get some NFL back, especially once I finish painting the Tom Brady mural. I want it to be worth it. But
take a drink, Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens, but it's definitely fun to chat about and just kind of speculate a little bit, because there's so many different things that can take place. And I mean, the Pats are benefiting from it. If we want to segue,
yes,
Pats have benefited from this greatly in a sense, in one way, and maybe been diminished in others. I know you're going to get there, but Pats have $35 million in cap space right now. So because of all these opt-outs. Steve, do you want to go into the opt-outs? Because I know you're going to be a pessimistic guy on this one.
Let's dive into the opt-outs, Auzzie. And here's time for a little debate here, because I know we've been on opposite ends of the spectrum on this one in the group chats. So what is it? Hightower and Patrick Chung are the two biggest names that have opted out, right? And Cannon, your right tackle. It's his first name, Marcus Cannon?
Marcus Cannon, yeah.
Marcus Cannon. So those are the three biggest names. I think there's 5 more. You had 8 in total opt out.
Yeah.
Auzzie, that's a huge loss, my friend. Before you guys signed Cam Newton, I had you guys going, 7-9 with Jared Stidham. Cam Newton comes in. I'm like, holy crap, I'm on board. This team's going 11-5. Wrote it down. I even had to change my prediction. And then the Jets trade Jamal Adams. That weakens that division opponent even more. I think they're going 4-12. But now you have all these opt-outs. You have Cam Newton, who I love Cam Newton, but if you're going to take away a bunch of talent from his team, especially his right tackle, I think that's a problem. It's going to come down, if there's a full season, let's just under the assumption these guys all behave and everything goes well, it's going to come down to week 16 or 17, and I'm going to trust the Bills to get in before I trust this depleted Patriots roster to get in, and that's barring any crazy signing like you guys go get Jadeveon Clowney or something. But I'll pass it off to you, Auzzie. I have the Patriots now going maybe 8-8 or 9-7. I had them going 11-5 before you lost Hightower, Cannon, Chung. That worries me, my friend. It worries me greatly.
Oh, buddy. So I'm just going to say that I think that, yes, the opt-outs have not been ideal. You lose a right tackle who, when he's at the top of his game, he's up there. It's one of the top right tackles in the game. In Marcus Cannon. Dante Hightower I can't I can't stress his importance enough. He's been in he's made key plays in the biggest games, in the Super Bowls that we've won. He's always been one of those guys, like the strip sack of Matt Ryan, the tackle of Marshawn Lynch at the 1. So Dante Hightower has been there for a lot of big plays, and he is a presence that you can't really easily replace. And Patrick Chung, he's there. He's good, but he's not like, I think that the loss of these guys is just kind of overblown. And so that's where I disagree with you greatly, Steve, in your thought process, because yes, you lose your right tackle in Marcus Cannon. We have been without Marcus Cannon in years past, and we've done just fine. Dante Hightower, before we signed him to his extension, he was injured, I think, 2 seasons in a row. So we were without him for quite some time. And again, we did pretty decent over that stretch. We didn't win any Super Bowls without him, but we did pretty well. So, and Patrick Chung had left us for quite a bit. I went to Tampa, I believe, and then he came back. So, like, and this is recent. Like, these are the same players. So I think that in a Bill Belichick-led defense, I think, not to say that these guys are easily replaceable, but we do have guys that can fill in. And I think that the best part about these particular players opting out is that we drafted heavily in those positions, which is just incredible. We drafted Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings at linebacker, and so you get some added depth behind Jawan Bentley, who's going to replace Dante Hightower this year. We drafted Kyle Duggar with our first draft pick, and he was projected to replace Patrick Chung after this season. So I am just totally like, if Kyle Duggar, and this is the big if, are the rookies going to be hits? And that's always a guessing game. Front offices are won and lost or I guess hired and fired based on their hits. And Bill Belichick is not known for his 2nd-round draft picks. But if Kyle Duggar is a hit at strong safety, that replaces Patrick Chung. Boom, secondary stays intact. Jawan Bentley, before he went down in 2018, was one of PFF's highest ranked linebackers through 3 weeks. It's only 3 weeks, but still pretty good. Last year, he fell down the depth chart behind Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower, which isn't ideal, but at the same time, those were centerpieces for the Pats defense last year, and they all had significant seasons. So I'm confident in the linebacking group in a sense, at least in terms of Hightower's replacement and Jawan Bentley, if he can stay healthy. 3 weeks isn't a good sample size, but still. So these are some big ifs, but it's the same way if you're looking at it from your lens, Steve, where you're saying, you know what, they lost this talent, they're going to lose. Like, I look at the other 5 guys that the Patriots lost, and it's not all this talent that Cam Newton's losing, like you mentioned. Like, these guys are on the bubble of making the roster even in a regular season, in a non-pandemic.
Not Hightower. You talk about the other 5.
I'm talking about the other 5.
Okay,
you schmucklehead.
Okay. So
Marquise Lee, we just signed him this offseason. There's like, how many veteran wide receivers do we sign every offseason that are big-ish names and they don't make the roster? Marquise Lee, I'd put in that category. Matt Lacoste, injured last year, probably a bubble guy again this year. He was supposed to be our big savior after Gronk retired last year. Didn't make much of an impact last year. Brandon Bolden played for the Dolphins last year, torched us for some special teams returns. That wasn't ideal, but again, he's just a special teamer on this team. Dan Vitale is the biggest loss out of these 5. He's the fullback that we signed from Green Bay. And we saw how big the fullback position is for the Patriots.
Don't sleep
on this
on
offense.
Fullbacks, man.
Yeah, in the Patriots offense, fullbacks are very highly coveted. And so Dan Vitale, losing him, it kind of sucks. But we do have a tight end that we drafted that could replace him there. And then we got a rookie guard that we drafted in Najee Charan. And again, another rookie. So there's no guarantee what you're going to get out of rookies. And I've spoken enough.
Is Wynn sliding over to right tackle, or where's he playing lately?
He was a guard in Georgia, and then there was talks of him being left tackle. So I'm not sure where he's going to slide in at, but I doubt he'll be right tackle. I have a list of replacements. So I talked about Juwan Bentley and Kyle Duggar. And then for Marcus Cannon's replacements, Yodny Kajust was one of the top offensive tackles last year in the draft. He was projected as a first rounder, and tons of like top scouts like Matt Miller and guys like that. Like he had Yodny Kajust as a round one talent, but he fell because of an injury. And so if apparently he's back healthy, they always say that they're in the best shape they've ever been. So assuming that's somewhat of the case, if he's healthy, like that's a really good depth. I mean, they always talk about transitioning a guy to the right side. It's not always easy, but if he can transition from left to right, then that's a good fit. Jermaine Illuminor and Corey Cunningham I have as like probably of those two, one will probably be the right tackle. That'll be your replacement. They played lots last year.
Auzzie, let me ask you this.
Go for it.
These rookies you mentioned, they could all very well be the answer. But does the prospect of no rookie camps, no OTAs, and no preseason games now at all worry you about how fast the learning curve is going to be for these guys? Like, say they are stellar replacements, it could be week 5 or 6 before these guys get their feet under them. Whereas when you have 4 full preseason games to get some work in, it's a different story. Does that not factor in?
That's totally fair, Steve. And I think that would be the case if it was like if all 3 guys that are replacing Hightower, Patrick Chung, and Marcus Cannon, if they were all rookies, I would be totally concerned. There's no way I could look at you straight in the face right now, straight in your screen or whatever.
You look at me in the face.
And be like, okay, we got 3 rookies replacing these guys. The Pats are fine. There's no way I could do that. Kyle Duggar being the chess piece that he is, and being literally the projected replacement for Patrick Chung, that gives me a little bit of hope. To your point, though, I think that certainly there will be some a learning curve there, and we got to have some depth there behind to hopefully replace that loss for the short term until Kyle Duggar can get some snaps under his belt. But I still think that there's enough times where guys like that. I mean, I don't have the answer.
Okay, fair enough.
There's no way.
Off the top of your head, does your prediction of a record decrease because of these losses, or do you have it breaking even? Like if you thought they were going 10-6, are they still going 10-6?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's fair. I think they lost 2 wins because of these losses, but maybe I'm overstating them. But that's the debate.
Like I don't know. So Kyle Duggar, if he doesn't, the defense is still for the most part like really good. The secondary is still good. You still got Devin McCourty, Jason McCourty, J.C. Jackson has been a top young cornerback in the league for the last 2 years. Stephon Gilmore is I think he was like top 5 ranked or something.
He is the best corner in the league, I think.
He's the best corner in the league. And so it's not the secondary. I'm not worried about the loss of Patrick Chung. Jawan Williams, we had drafted last year. He played a little bit in the slot. He played a little bit. I think that he could transition to safety. There was talks of him even moving to safety before Patrick Chung had opted out. This was last year, of course, when we just drafted him. So there are these guys who can slot in, and we talk about, or maybe not we in particular, but people talk about how Bill Belichick loves versatility in his guys. And when you have DBs that are as versatile as the ones that we have that can slot into a spot to replace Patrick Chung, I don't think the defense takes as bad as a hit as people are thinking. And then the offense, I mean, there's always question marks about the offense because of receiver or whatever. Marquise Lee opting out, I'm not worried about at all. That doesn't change my record at all. Marcus Cannon, yes, that has an impact, but right tackle is not left tackle. It would be different if we had like Joe Tooney opting out, who's our like all-pro left guard. I'd be quite upset about that.
Fair enough.
But David Andrews is coming back, so the interior of the offensive line will be juicy. I mean, I've ranted enough. I think everybody gets around that.
That's fair, Auzzie.
This is good.
You know what? I think you talked me into it a little bit. I'm going to go down from 11-5 to 10-6. I don't think they lose 2 wins. You talked me into it. I don't think maybe they're as bad as I thought they were. Just on paper, the names are the names. Like Hightower's been there for the better part of half a decade now. I think you guys drafted him in 2013 or 14.
Yeah.
We know he was there for the Seahawks Super Bowl, so he's been there for 6 years now. I know that for sure. But yeah, you know what? I think I'm not going to underestimate Bill Belichick. And as long as you still got some versatile players on that defense, I really believe in Cam Newton this year, man. We can't say it enough. And we could just have a full episode just gushing over Cam Newton. But I'm very scared of what he's going to do with how pissed off he is. So
I was watching those workouts before he was a Patriot. I was like, oh man, whoever gets him is going to get a treat.
I need to get his
to be the Patriots.
Workout plan. You talked about best shape of their life. I feel like I've potentially peaked physically in high school. So I need to definitely get onto some kind of regimen. So just thinking out loud. All right.
Oh, actually, one sec. There's actually talks of the Patriots looking at Delaney Walker. And I know he's had like some injury plagued seasons over the years, but you get Delaney Walker and Cam Newton, you might get another Cam Newton, Greg Olsen connection.
Yeah,
that'd be juicy.
All right, Auzzie, it's time for a coward of the week. So another great segue here, opt-outs. We've seen plenty of players opt out. Just this past day, Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills, a little Jasper, was considering opting out, and all of a sudden fans and even some analysts alike just jumped on his back. I ripped him to shreds. And this has happened to plenty of players who have opted out. And you're probably like, Steven, please don't tell me what to call these players who are opting out cowards of the week. No, I'm calling everyone who's ridiculed a player for opting out, you're a fucking coward. All right. Here's the deal. These players don't owe you a goddamn thing. We're in the middle of an international pandemic. And I just said 20 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago, I don't think there should be a season. Plain and simple. I'd love to see some CFL football. Guess what? That's going to be in a bubble. The two leagues that we're enjoying right now, Auzzie, guess what? They're in bubbles. And as much as I like Pete Carroll's philosophy around the whole thing, to get 32 teams to buy into that same thing when they don't have that same kind of leadership, it's not going to happen. And so for these players who have newborn children, relatives at risk, pregnant wives, mothers and fathers who are potentially at risk as well, I don't blame them one bit for saying, you know what, it's maybe not just worth it this year. And the NFLPA set up a good plan for me to still provide for my family. And I see a lot of people complaining, well, my job doesn't let me opt out, but those same people are the ones that are all about free market and capitalism. Well, I guess you should have been better at football in fucking high school, Jerry, and not complain about your shitty job that's not giving you benefits to go home and be safe with your family. So that's capitalism in the free market for you. So your issue technically shouldn't be with these football players. It should be with your employer and or the system. But yet they take it out on these players who are just doing the best for their family, which is anything that we would do if we were given the right, if we were given those advantages. And those advantages are working your ass off, being very talented at a sport that very few people can make it in. So I'm really tired of seeing these people just bitch and complain about players. If Russell Wilson opted out tomorrow, I'd be sad, but I wouldn't hold him against him one bit, even though I know for a fact we'd go 2-14 and I'd have to cry myself to sleep after every game. But I still wouldn't be mad at Russell Wilson for that because I know he'd be doing it in the best interest of his family. Go complain to your employer. Stop complaining at these players. It's not their problem that you have a shitty job that doesn't give you unemployment benefits. So, yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that these people are they take the concept of sport and just take it to a whole nother level, to the point of to where they just kind of see these players as kind of they're slaves and they have to cater to the fan, which like they get paid a lot of money because there's millions of fans around the world. But that doesn't, like at the end of the day, these people have families of their own. They have lives of their own. They're not just caged animals that we're just throwing out and just watching play sports ball. They are people that have like worked to get to where they are. And like you said, Steve, like these are people that have taken advantage of the talents that they have to get to this position that they're in. And it just totally baffles me that people think of them as just like that they're so hard done by. It's like if Tom Brady opted out, the Bucks fans would be like, oh, but the Super Bowl. And then there's probably people out there that are like, if he does it, like I'm gonna whatever. Mm-hmm. But my point being that, like, yes, you have expectations. Like I use the Bucks as an example because everybody's saying Super Bowl for them. But like if a star player like Tom Brady opts out, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to say about it? Like he's doing it for the betterment of his health and his family's health and well-being. Mm-hmm. Just because you wanted a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay doesn't mean you're going to like, and what's the value in that? Like, okay, go put your family and your own health at risk to go get me a Super Bowl as a fan. Like there's a disconnect there that people have made a connection. And it totally baffles my mind that people are complaining about this genuinely. Like you said, if Russell Wilson opted out, in my case, if Bill Belichick opted out or like some big player or whatever, of course, as a fan, you think of the concept of your team and you have all this talent on your team. You think we're good. And then all of a sudden, maybe somebody like I said, Bill Belichick opts out and now the team is just crumbled. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, what am I going to do about it? I'm still going to go to work and do my thing. I'm still going to watch football on Sundays if there's even a league.
The sun's going to come up the next day,
yeah,
right? Like
exactly, right? Yeah. Like the world's going to keep churning. And it just means that one more person is comfortable with the decisions that they've made because they know that they're going to be as safe as they can be in this circumstance. And you said it, Stephen, here I am ranting still. Like no,
it's fair.
These people are the epitome of a coward.
I think the big thing is there's a disconnect. So they're probably like, oh, you guys talk about sports for a podcast and you put a lot of time on the side. Don't get me wrong. Sports are a big part of society as a whole, and they're important. They provide value to a community. They rally people behind one cause. They bring attention to certain platforms like Black Lives Matter and when NFL does Breast Cancer Awareness Month and they draw awareness to support the troops. Like they're a great catalyst to draw attention to really big causes. And sports are very important to us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if they weren't important. But there's sports and there's real life. And I think that's the disconnect where as important as sports are to us as fans, to players, to coaches, and to the causes they bring attention to even, it shouldn't come at the expense of Tre'Davious White's son. It shouldn't come at the expense of, whoever's grandma who's susceptible to that. Like, sports are important, but they're not that important. And I think that's something that people just get so caught up in all of this that they forget what's really important. I love sports, and I'd be very sad if all sports did disappear for quite a few months. But guess what? As Tom Brady would say, we're still here. Like, we're all still here. We got through it, and now sports are back. So, like, if these players want to opt out, shut up. There'll be another season. They'll be back next year. Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not like, like Barry Sanders retired in his prime, Megatron retired in his prime, and guess what? We still watch sports. The life goes on. Like, and these players are coming back. They're just sitting out one season because there's a international pandemic going on. So Put on your mask, shut up, and hope we can all be safe enough to have a season. And if any more players opt out, then we just accept it and we move on because the sun comes up the next day.
And if you're worried that you're losing a year of your player, their contract is extended that extra year. So you really have nothing to complain about. If it's your favorite player, you still get them for an extra year. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. But Steve, you said it very eloquently. I just had to apparently ruin it with my little statement there.
Third and Wrong's here to tell you that athletes don't owe you a goddamn thing, and don't ever forget it. All right. And us, they don't owe us anything. So you can find me on Twitter at SteveBolin22. Love to chat some sports with you. NBA, NHL. I'm not as well versed as I am in football, but happy to spread we're good news of the Lakers. And you can definitely follow all our social medias at the Amateur Agency, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're getting into it all. Auzzie, where can the fine folks find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustinPaul_. Austin with a Y and not an I. And I should be getting back to being more active. So hopefully want to chat some Leafs hockey or just chirp the Leafs, and I'm here for it. So whatever gets you going.
Ow. You're doing so good, Auzzie.
I guess there we go. Yeah.
Little treat to end your episode.
Yeah.
Have a great week, everyone. We'll hopefully have some interviews lined up for the rest of summer here. And you know what? If we're assuming there's a season, we'll start dropping some fantasy football takes for you, because we know well, that's just a big part of life too. Good night and Godspeed.
Leafs.
Go Lakers.